a part of you.
This is Adbn News at 7. I am Beto Brian. In the news this morning, Vice President Kashim Shettima has urged Nigerians to embrace unity, forgiveness, and peaceful coexistence, saying the nation's security, stability, and prosperity depends on placing the collective interest above ethnic, religious, and political differences. Speaking in Jos at the 80th birthday celebration of former Plateau State Governor Jonah Jang, Shettima said Plateau's experience reflects Nigeria's diversity and complexities. He stressed that no criminal should be judged by ethnicity, religion, or place of origin, and called on leaders and citizens to reject hatred and promote reconciliation for lasting peace and development.
Plateau has always mattered to the heart of Nigeria. It hosts the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies at Kuru, the headquarters of the 3 Armored Division, Operation Safe Haven, the Police Staff College, the National Veterinary Research Institute at home, and the National Center for Remote Sensing. These difference which is far beyond our borders. A nation entrusts such treasures only to soil in which it believes.
Also speaking, former President Goodluck Jonathan described Jonah Jang as a dependable partner during his administration, while Plateau State Governor Caleb Mutfwang hailed him as a mentor, father figure, and exemplary leader whose impact on Plateau State remains enduring.
The choices he made, the challenges he faced, and the convictions that sustained him throughout his years of service. That is why Airman to Politics, My Life, is more than a personal memoir. It's a contribution to our national history. It reminds us that leadership requires courage, patience, resilience, and faith.
One thing I want to assure you, that the people of Plateau love you. They love you. They will never forget what you have done for this state. And there are many things you have done for this state that cannot be forgotten. Today, one of the edifices that stand as a testimony to your administration is a new government house in Little Redfield. It's an edifice that people are yet to appreciate. I've traversed the length and breadth of this country, and I want to say that it is one of the best government houses in Nigeria.
In his response, Senator Jang thanked President Bola Tinubu for his goodwill message, President Shettima for attending the event, Governor Mutfwang for hosting, and all the dignitaries who honored him.
This book is not written to settle scores or attack anyone. Rather, it is an honest effort to place events in their proper context, explain the circumstances under which certain decisions were taken, and present the facts as I experienced them. I believe history is best known when those who participated in it tell their stories truthfully and with humility.
Minister of Works Engineer David Umahi has assured Nigerians that ongoing federal infrastructure projects will be constructed under the President Bola Tinubu administration without abandoning any. Umahi gave the assurance at the weekend during an inspection of federal road projects in Ebonyi State. He said the President Tinubu's administration remains committed to completing across the country to stimulate economic growth and improve connectivity. According to the minister, the ongoing road projects have created thousands of direct and indirect employment opportunities while boosting economic activities in host communities. He urged the people of the Southeast to acknowledge what he described as the president's commitment to the region rather than focusing solely on criticism of the administration. The leadership of the Niger Delta ex-agitators Phase 3 in Delta State have endorsed President Bola Tinubu and Senate President Godswill Akpabio for re-election in the 2027 general elections. The endorsement was worry during the inauguration of newly elected executives who would lead Phase 3 beneficiaries of the presidential amnesty program in the state for the next 2 years. Speaking after his inauguration, the new chairman, Moyibo, praised President Tinubu for appointing Dr. Dennis Otuaro as administrator of the presidential amnesty program, saying the appointment has strengthened peace and stability in the Niger Delta.
Leadership for Phase 3, since they are not be training people, we have been crying for this leadership. We have been expecting this since, but we never see it. But there is Otuaro, when Otuaro enter, he's very great leadership, training people, even scholarship for students. So we never see this kind of amnesty before.
Vindicates the party, dismisses claims that it would be unable to field a presidential candidate, and thanked its members and supporters for their loyalty throughout the leadership crisis. Ogun State Executive Council has approved the construction of 550 housing units, new official quarters for members of the State House of Assembly, the reconstruction of the Ogun State Governor's Lodge in Abuja, the rehabilitation of strategic roads across the state, and the upgrade of some traditional schools. According to a statement issued on Sunday by the Special Advisor to the Governor on Information and Strategy, Kayode Akimade, the approvals are part of Governor Dakwa Abiodun's efforts to deepen infrastructure development, strengthen governance institutions, and preserve the state's cultural heritage. He said the council also approved the reconstruction of key roads across the state's 3 senatorial districts to improve connectivity and boost economic activities. On the reconstruction of the assembly quarters and the governor's lodge, Akimade said the projects will provide a more conducive environment for governance while preserving government assets. The governor's media aide added that the projects align with the administration's policy of replacing obsolete public infrastructure with modern, durable facilities capable of meeting the state's growing needs. According to him, many government buildings inherited by the present administration are over 50 years old and have deteriorated beyond economic repair. The National Commission for Refugees, Migrants, and Internally Displaced Persons, in collaboration with Action Aid Nigeria, through the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, have launched the Humanitarian Development and Peace Practitioners Nexus, Policy Coherence, and Learning Sub-Working Group. The launch ceremony, which held in Abuja, featured a high-level roundtable on financing the HDP Nexus in Nigeria and a policy review to strengthen the National Durable Solutions Architecture for internally displaced persons and returnees. The report.
Nigeria currently faces a severe displacement crisis with over 6 million affected people, prompting a strategic shift towards durable relocation solutions through voluntary return, local integration, and permanent resettlement cities. States like Benue State have set up a 5-year IDP resettlement plan. Yobe State government considers allocating 5% of its 2025 to 2027 budgets to IDPs, while the federal government has commenced construction of new permanent housing developments and communities with pilot phases in Nasarawa, Borno, and Zamfara states.
For how long will Nigeria continue to be feeding them, giving them food items, giving them soap and mosquito net? I think that is not tenable at all.
This event represents another significant milestone in Nigerian collective effort to institutionalize an integrated approach to addressing humanitarian crises, promoting sustainable development, and building lasting peace across our nation.
Speaking on the importance of the launch of the Policy Coherence and Learning Sub-Working Group, Director Business Development and Innovation at ActionAid underscored the need for accountability and transparency in resource mobilization.
And that would mean constantly being in part of the technical working group, the subgroup that has been launched today. And they will provide technical capacity to that group as required, and also ensure that all resources are accounted for, because one of the mandates of this subgroup is also to raise resources for ensuring that resources is available, both financial and human resources available for the HDP to fly.
All the participants and stakeholders highlighted immediate deliverables in social protection, inclusion, and protection services.
When you talk about IDP camps, this should be very temporal structures. They should not be there. We have IDP camps that have been there for as much as 12, 15 years. It's not a good thing. If you have ever seen an IDP camp, you will not wish it for anybody.
In terms of the shifts that are happening in the coordination of humanitarian work, and how it relates to these issues of durable solutions and development investments in the future of people affected by displacement.
The HDB Nexus launch focused on clarifying the mandates, reporting line, membership expectations, and value addition of the sub-working group, with a clearer understanding of multi-sectoral and multi-year financing, in addition to learning partnerships with the UNDP Crisis Academy. From the nation's capital, Bito Brian, Adbn News.
Yobe State Emergency Management Agency says heavy rainfall and flash floodings have affected communities in Damaturu, Nguru, Machina, and Busari local government areas. According to the agency, territorial rainfall triggered flash floods that damaged several residential buildings. It noted that assessments are ongoing to determine the full extent of the destruction and guide emergency response efforts. SEMA urged residents to remain indoors during heavy rainfall, avoid flood-prone areas and unnecessary travel, while observing safety measures throughout the rainy season. The Nigerian Army says the graduation of new cadets from the Nigerian Military School Zaria would strengthen the country's military manpower and operational capacity. Speaking at the 68th Passing Out Parade in Zaria, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Waid Shuaibu, represented by the Commander, Infantry Corps Major General Godwin Mutkut, urged graduating cadets to uphold discipline, patriotism, and professionalism in service to the nation. He also warned against violations of operational security, including the misuse of social media.
Today's graduation is a tangible boost to our ongoing efforts to implement Mr. President's directives to expand the Nigerian Army's force structure from the current 8 divisions to 12. Indeed, service to Nigeria remains the highest honor any individual can give to his nation. Uphold these values always, as they are the pillars upon which our armed forces stand. Thankfully, you are not alone on this journey, but are now part of a long-standing tradition of excellent mentorship. Face the future with courage, humility, and an unwavering commitment to the ideals you now represent.
Lieutenant General Waidi Shuaibu described the graduation as a major milestone, noting that 6 years training program had equipped the cadets with the leadership skills, values, and discipline required for future military service. He commended the commandant instructors, staff, and parents for their contributions to the cadets' success, and charged the graduates to uphold the values of the Nigerian Army while contributing to national peace, security, and development.
Let me be clear. Violations of social media policy can and will result in disciplinary action, including dismissal from service,
where necessary. You must therefore exercise the highest level of restraint, maturity, and responsibility as you navigate the social media space. Equally, wherever you are deployed, I implore you to competently operate within the stipulations of the tenets of human rights and strictly adhere to the rules of engagement and standard operating procedures in the conduct of operations.
Remains one of the country's foremost institutions for grooming future military leaders with a strong academic and leadership foundation. Troops of the Nigerian Army have rescued 34 kidnapped victims, arrested suspected ISWAP informants, and recovered arms and ammunition during coordinated operations across the country. According to an operational report, troops of Operation Haɗin Kai rescued 31 abducted victims along the Buratai Kamuya Road in Biu local government area of Borno State. After responding to the intelligence that terrorists were abducting civilians, the troops engaged the attackers, forcing them to flee and abandon the victims. The report also says troops of Operation Fasanyama repelled terrorists in Zamfara State, while troops of Operation Mesa rescued a kidnapped woman and her 2 children along the Obajana Jakura Tajimi Road in Lokoja, Kogi State. Meanwhile, 1 Nigerian Army officer and a police officer have been killed after troops of Operation Fasanyama repelled a terrorist attack on a forward operating base in Kura, Namoda local government area of Zamfara State. The Nigerian Army said the terrorists attempted to infiltrate the Kaswandaji base in the early hours of Saturday, but were driven back by troops who inflicted heavy casualties on the attackers and forced them to flee. During a follow-up operation, troops rescued 9 abducted civilians from the fleeing terrorists. The army said reinforcements were deployed to pursue the attackers and reaffirmed its commitment to sustaining operations against terrorism in the region. Governor of Enugu State, Peter Mba, has honored former Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, retired, describing him as a patriotic and exemplary leader whose legacy of service strengthened national security and human capital development. Governor Mba praised Ogala's role in establishing a naval base at Uguragu and a Navy secondary school in Enugu, urging Nigerians to emulate his selfless leadership. At the reception in Enugu, Chief of Defense Staff General Christopher Musa retired, and Chief of Air Staff Air Marshal Sunday Aneke commended Ogala's professionalism, integrity, and dedication. In his response, Ogala thanked the Enugu State Governor and government for the honor while lauding Mba's leadership, describing his development efforts and security strategies as unprecedented. National Drug Law Enforcement Agency NDLEA has intercepted cocaine concealed in a local mortar and a backpack destined for China and Italy through a Lagos logistic company. The agency also arrested suspected drug traffickers in Rivers, Anambra, Delta, Nasarawa, and Zamfara states, recovering large quantities of cocaine, cannabis, methamphetamine, codeine syrup, tramadol, and other illicit drugs during separate operations. NDLEA Chairman Brigadier General Mohammed Buba Marwa, retired, commended the officers for the successful operations and urged them to sustain the agency's crackdown on drug trafficking alongside nationwide anti-drug awareness campaigns. Humility and service have been identified as stepping stones to be embraced by people aspiring to positions of leadership and influence. Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Pastor Omueno, gave the charge while delivering a lecture at the Special Leadership Summit organized by the Shepherd House of Assembly in Abuja. Francisca Oga has details.
We are at the Shepherd's House Assembly, where the governor of Akwa Ibom State, Pastor Omueno, has just delivered a teaching during a special leadership summit organized by the Shepherd House Assembly.
The church was packed full and the congregation listened with rapt attention as Pastor Omueno Governor of Akwa Ibom State, gave a teaching on leadership backed with passages from the Bible and laced with true life experiences from his journey as a leader. He said, leaders are made in the secret place and often go through a period of test.
God will never give you a platform to amplify what you do if He does not trust your character. He will want to be sure that if I give you this platform, that your character, and the other will say character, your character must be good.
Speaking to journalists after the service, the governor shared how being a pastor has influenced his leadership style and called on leaders to always put the people they serve first.
First of all, it teaches you to serve the people with humility and dignity, with integrity. All of those are virtues that you carry as a child of God, but as a pastor, someone who has been speaking to others. It's now my time, maybe a test period, and I pray that God will find me worthy after this exercise. Every government is of God, and we must learn as citizens to support the government so that they can continue to achieve the purpose for which God has sent them. I believe, like I said, brother chaos.
The senior pastor of the Shepherd House Assembly, Apostle Joshua Kalena, while fielding questions from journalists, described Pastor Umoeno as a wise choice by the people of Akwa Ibom State.
This man is accountable. He's a steward. He has humility. He loves the Lord. And I know he will do good for Akwa Ibom people. Just 3 years, we can see the impact he's making already. And he has the anointing for grassroots. He's opening the grassroots, the local governments, and the wards are opening up with the impact of his government.
The theme of the Leadership Summit is the voice of influence and afforded the congregation the opportunity to learn from a serving leader.
From the Shepherd House Assembly in Abuja, Francisca Orga, ABN News.
Ahead of the 2027 general elections, a Catholic priest of the Kaduna Archdiocese, Reverend Father Joshua Achu, has urged Nigerians to register and obtain their permanent voters card PVCs to elect credible leaders. Speaking in Kaduna, the cleric said active participation in the electoral process is essential to strengthening democracy, stressing that informed voting remains one of the most effective ways for citizens to influence good governance.
Every Nigerian is called upon to go out there, get their PVC, dust it, and keep it well, and wait for the time to vote. Every Nigerian is equally called to encourage those in their spaces and corners to get ready for the elections. That's the only way that we can effect a positive change in our nation, Nigeria. The young, the old, all those who have attained the age of having their voters card should please go out and do the needful. Let us have this voters card kept. That is the only way that we can effect the change that is desired when we come out to vote. And that is not to say that the government is not doing her best, but her best is not good enough at this point in time.
Father Archer also expressed concern over the country's security challenges, urging governments and security agencies to intensify efforts to protect lives and improve the welfare of citizens. He said insecurity has disrupted livelihoods and community development and called on leaders to create an enabling environment for Nigerians to thrive. He also appealed for unity, warning against divisive rhetorics and emphasizing that national progress depends on collective efforts.
But when insecurity becomes the order of the day, and there is no enabling environment for people to grow, for people to thrive, then it becomes a problem. The government should be sensitive to the needs of people, to the plight of Nigerians. And they should try as hard as they can to see that every Nigerian's life is better. I am sure that Nigerians will be happy. We have to show love and solidarity to one and all. We cannot allow people to come and divide us. No. It is always beautiful when we are together. We are even stronger together. We are better together. And so no one should allow cracks in the world. No one should be a clog in the wheel. We should do our own best and encourage others to do so as well.
The cleric said responsible leadership, active voter participation, and improved security are critical to deepening Nigeria's democracy ahead of the 2027 general elections. Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria FAN has clarified that no fire occurred at the Terminal 2 of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, contrary to earlier reports. In a statement, FAN said the smoke seen inside the terminal was caused by a discharge of the facility's FM200 fire suppression system, not a fire. It added that investigations are on the way to determine what triggered the system. The authority confirmed that no injuries or casualties were recorded and that normal operations have since resumed, with passenger processing and flight activities continuing as scheduled. FAN reaffirmed its commitment to the safety and security of airport operations. You're watching Adbn News at 7. Stay with us for more news stories and reports from the entertainment desk, foreign and sports scenes. Stay with us. Well, thanks for staying with us on Adbn News this morning. Now to news on the foreign scene. The death toll from last week's mass migrant surge from Morocco into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta has risen to at least 72, after 5 more bodies were recovered along the North African coast. More than 50,000 migrants crossed into Ceuta by land and sea in an unprecedented surge, prompting concerns across the European Union. Spanish authorities say more than 48,000 migrants were returned to Morocco within 48 hours, with further repatriations continuing over the weekend. Officials confirmed that some migrants drowned and others were crushed while trying to climb a breakwater and the border fence. 2 firefighting helicopters collided while battling a major wildfire in Greece, killing 2 crew members as fires continue to ravage parts of the country. The fire service said a Greek and a Danish national died in the crash, while a Greek and a British crew member survived. An investigation into the cause of the collision is on the way. The wildfires have destroyed more than 100 homes northwest of Athens, while residents also fled a separate blaze on the island of Kefalonia, as Greece continues to face extreme fire conditions driven by heat waves and drought. Team Nigeria finished 7th on the medals table as the curtains came down on the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow, Scotland. Nigeria ended the games with an impressive haul of 24 medals made up of 10 gold, 7 silver and 7 bronze, won across 4 sports. making the country the highest-ranked African nation at the Games. Australia topped the medal tables with 171 medals, including 70 gold, while England finished second with 110 medals. Canada, India, hosts Scotland, and New Zealand completed the top 6 in that order. Glasgow stepped into stage the Games after Victoria. Australia withdrew as host in July 2023, ensuring the successful delivery of the multi-sport event. Cameroon's women's national football team moved to the brink of the quarterfinals of the 2026 Women African Cup of Nations with a hard-fought 1-0 victory over Ghana in Sunday's Group D clash in Casablanca. The indomitable Lions followed up last week's 2-1 win over Mali with another disciplined display as Marie Nga Manga continued her fine form by scoring the only goal of the match. The striker now netted 3 goals at the tournament, accounting for all of Cameroon's goals in Morocco. Meanwhile, Mali revived their campaign with a 3-2 victory over Cape Verde at the Labin Zaouli Stadium in Casablanca. The victory moves Mali level on 3 points with Ghana after Cameroon's earlier win sent the indomitable Lionesses to the top of Group D with 6 points. Spider-Man Brand New Day has made box office history, earning an estimated $355 million in its opening weekend in North America to become the second biggest domestic debut of all time, behind only Avengers Endgame, which opened with $357 million in 2019. The Sony blockbuster also grossed $572 million internationally, including $121 million from China, bringing its global opening weekend total to $927 million, the second highest worldwide debut ever, behind Avengers Endgame. Starring Tom Holland, the film set a new opening day record of $168 million in the United States and Canada. Combined with the continued success of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey, it helped deliver the biggest weekend ever of North American cinema, with the total ticket sales estimated at $530 million. And that's it in ADBN TV News. Remember to watch us live on DSTV channel 258, on StarTimes channel 140, Avo TV app, Limex World TV app, and Niger TV app. For more stories, visit our website on www.adbntv.com. You can also watch us live from every part of the world by logging on to www.adbntv.com/live. I am Beto Brian, thanking you for watching. Good morning.
Did you know vote buying and vote selling is a criminal offense? Under Nigerian law, the punishments for vote buying and selling includes a fine of 5 million naira, a 2-year jail term, or both. Through strict legislative updates to the repealed Electoral Act 2022 ahead of the upcoming general elections, the National Assembly significantly stiffened these penalties. Under the current legal framework, Section 22 of the new Electoral Act 2026, the fine was escalated from previous limits, which capped punishment at 500,000 naira and 12 months in prison, to not less than 5 million naira and a jail term of not less than 2 years. Additionally, convicted offenders face a mandatory 10-year ban from contesting any election in Nigeria. The stifling penalties apply explicitly to anyone who unlawfully possesses a voter's card, sells or attempts to sell a voter's card, buys or offers to buy a vote, or sells and offers to sell a vote. All voters are advised against selling their votes. If votes don't count, who would try to buy them? Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign.
Did you know the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) will begin the distribution of permanent voter cards across Osun State from Wednesday, the 22nd of July 2026, ahead of the Osun State governorship election on Saturday, the 15th of August 2026. According to the Osun State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, the exercise is for newly registered voters, citizens who apply for a transfer of their voter registration, those who requested replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, as well as voters who are yet to collect their cards from previous registration exercises. PVC distribution will begin at the registration area centers from Wednesday, the 22nd of July, before moving to INEC local government area offices from Wednesday, the 29th of July to Friday, the 7th of August, between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily, including weekends. Remember, PVC collection is strictly personal. No one can collect your card on your behalf, and without your PVC, you cannot be accredited or vote on election day. As Osun prepares to elect its next governor and deputy governor, visit your designated PVC collection center before the deadline. Collect your permanent voter cards and take your place in deciding the future of Osun on Saturday, the 15th of August, 2026. Get your PVC. Protect your vote.
Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign.
Every day, across forests, highways, towns, and villages, brave men and women stand watch so that Nigeria can sleep. They leave their families behind, confront danger head-on, and make sacrifices many of us will never see. Yet, the enemies of our nation continue their assault. They target our children. They murder innocent citizens. They force families from their homes. They turn thriving communities into places of fear and uncertainty. Their goal is simple: to break our spirit, divide our people, and steal the future of our nation. But Nigeria is stronger than terror. As we demand greater accountability, stronger security measures, and more effective action from those entrusted with our safety, we must also play our part. Support our security forces, salute their gallantry, stand with those who stand for us. If you see something, say something. Let us be our brother's keeper. We must never surrender to fear, despair, or hopelessness. This is not the time for division, not by tribe, not by religion, not by region, not by political party. Because terror recognizes no ethnicity, no faith, and no ideology. Its enemy is all of us. And together, united as one people, we can defeat it. For our children, for our communities, for our future, for Nigeria. Join the movement. Stand for our country. Stand for one another. Hashtag Unite Against Terror.
Every second, a story breaks.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has formally presented the 2026 appropriation bill to the National Assembly.
The nation reacts. The world shifts. History moves in real time. Before the noise, before the opinions. One screen keeps you connected. From the headlines shaking the nation to the stories everyone talks about tomorrow. Stream anytime, anywhere. When the story matters, you are part of you.
It doesn't take a pandemic or an epidemic to know that clean hands save lives. Hand washing is essential anytime, anywhere to protect your health. So keep washing your hands, not just when they're dirty, but even on the go. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep your hands clean.
Welcome to the Niger Delta, a region of incredible beauty and stark contrast. From its breathtaking landscapes to its rich cultural heritage, this is a place where history and modernity collide. But beneath this serene surface lies a story of struggle and resilience. The Niger Delta is the lifeblood of Nigeria's economy, home to vast oil reserves that fuel the nation, yet it is a land where the people fight for their share of the wealth. Join us on the program Niger Delta Today as we explore the heart of the Niger Delta, discover the vibrant cultures, the struggles for environmental justice, and the stories of the people who call this place home. This is the Niger Delta, a land of contrast, a story of resilience, a journey of hope. Don't miss our exclusive series, Niger Delta Today, every day at 12 noon, only on Adbn TV. Witness the untold stories, experience the journey, be part of the change.
The global business is never static. Watch the market report on Adbn TV for business information, latest happening, business deals, government economic policies, stock, crude oil and commodity trading, financial upstick and downstick, and the world of organized private sector. The market report showing on Adbn TV 1 to 2 p.m. Monday to Friday. The market report bringing you up to speed in the business world.
Hello, good morning, and a warm welcome to ADBN's flagship program, Morning Express. My name is Chijioke Okafu, and I'm not alone in the studio this morning. I'm being joined by my colleague and co-host, Bito Bryan. Very good morning to you, Bito.
Good morning to you,
It's
Chijioke.
a wonderful new week and gearing up to many stories around the country.
Indeed, a brilliant way to even get the week started following the Super Falcons victory yesterday at the WAFCONs. I'm sure a lot of Nigerians felt much elated that there was something to celebrate. On that note, we're welcoming you to the program this morning. We're looking at some of the major stories making the rounds this morning as we get your day started off with a review of major headlines across the dailies.
You're welcome back to Morning Express. Without much ado, let's head straight to the front pages this morning, starting off with the Disclosure News, which carries the headline story concerning the visit of the Catholic bishops to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu over the weekend. And of course, the meeting held, and part of the commitments that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made there is his administration's commitment to freedom of religion. But remember that we'd read these stories out as published, and the headline stories do not in any way represent us here at ADBN TV. Now, on the Disclosure newspaper this morning, President Tinubu says, "I'm committed to freedom of religion." Apologize to an icon now, Atiku tells presidency. Catholic bishops speak truth to power, not partisan, Shehu Sani warns. Now, this story is found prominently captured on news page 2 of the Disclosure newspaper. Right above the headline story and beneath the masthead, 3 political parties failed to field candidates as INEC displays 19 presidential candidates running mates gearing to the 2027 polls. Police recall retired AIG Igwe Owohunwa and 473 others, other mandatory 6-month induction. Elsewhere, Commonwealth Games, Nigeria misses 16 gold medals. Target finishes as Africa's best. Now, still to get some more stories on the Disclosure newspaper this morning, let's walk our way down on the rider. IMF cautions government against financial repression amid high debt profile. Japa syndrome. Federal government warns Nigerians against Sahara Desert, Mediterranean migration routes. DSS, community vigilantes neutralize bandit kingpin Idi Abasu, Aiki, 60 others in Katsina. I'll take that again. DSS, community vigilantes neutralize bandit kingpin Idi Abasu Aiki, 60 others in Katsina State. And lastly, ActionAid backs Tinubu's stand on flyovers, seeks swift action towards education and healthcare. These are the stories prominently featured on the Disclosure newspaper.
Well, away from the Disclosure newspaper this morning, part of the comments is made by Cardinal John Onayinka, criticizing President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that all is fair in politics, saying it is a dangerous statement to make, has drawn criticisms from presidency, while former Vice President Atiku Abubakar urges an apology to Cardinal John Onayinka and the Catholic Church. This can be seen as the lead story on the Daily Sun. Beneath the masthead on the Daily Sun, ripples over Tinubu Catholic bishops meeting. Attonations beneath that read, Northern Christians back clerics, dismiss Bwala's claims. They are not cheerleaders, Atiku tells presidency. Bishops should acknowledge gains made, Shehu Sani insists. Whilst besides the masthead, presidency Atiku fight over reforms. And now to the rider, where you'd find 2 pictures of prominence. That to the left shows the Edo State Governor presenting branded t-shirts and caps and other souvenirs to members of the Edo diaspora during the Shine Beyond Borders engagements in London, the United Kingdom. Whilst on the right, you'd find a book launch to commemorate former Plateau State Governor Senator Jonah Jang's 80th birthday, as attended by former President Goodluck Jonathan and Vice President Kashim Shettima. Rider stories read, 2027, Christian groups petition Trump, Congress over APC Muslim tickets. Nikon completes recapitalization, clears 43 insurance companies. Social intervention programs have failed Nigerians, says Oye. Cross River unveils $1.075 billion PPP investment deals. Those are the headline stories on The Sun.
Away from the Daily Sun newspaper, we move on to the Daily Monitor. Still mirroring a similar headline story there, it says, Atiku to presidency. Address Catholic bishops' concerns, stop attacking Onayinka. Says presidency's comment towards him on becoming of a government amounted to sheer arrogance. Rejects defense of Tinubu's economic policies, describes it as desperate attempt at revisionism. Well, this story is captured on the front page of the Daily Monitor, but some more feature stories on the front page. Reject ethnic profiling, religious hatred, Shettima urges Nigerians. Nigeria gets $500 million for vaccines. PH killed as troops foil attack by terrorists in Zamfara. Northern Christians back Catholic bishops fault Bala over divisive politics. Ahead of 2027, INEC publishes particulars of Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, others. And lastly, at the bottom, presidency dismisses Atiku's 7.98 trillion naira oil windfall claim, demands evidence. These are the stories prominently featured on the Daily Monitor this morning.
Away from the Daily Monitor, in continuation of our lineup, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper next. On the front page of The Nation, presidency contradicts Atiku's claims on economy performance. Ex-vice president using outdated data to assess economic outlook. Meanwhile, the picture of prominence shows President Bola Ahmed Tinubu receiving former President Goodluck Jonathan on a courtesy visit at Auri. Dangote, Senom signed $800 million deal on expansion of Itori Cement's plant capacity to 12 MTA. Whilst above the masthead, Nel Fund disburses 303.91 billion naira to 1.63 million students. 43 insurance companies beat NICOM's deadlines. Troops rescue 34 kidnapped victims. Arrest ISWAP informant. Why federal government may not prune foreign missions by minister. Those are the headline stories on The Nation.
From The Nation newspaper, we pick up the Nigerian News Direct carrying a similar headline story, and it reads, on the Nigerian News Direct, Nigeria's economy rebounding, GDP hits $377 billion. Presidency replies former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. Says opposition relied on outdated 2024 data to criticize reforms. Defends debt profile, oil revenue, healthcare, and education spending. Well, this story is captured on news page 20 of the Nigerian News Direct. Still staying on the front page, right above the masthead and the editorial there, Dangote Sinoma Inc. $800 million deal to expand Itori cement plant. Ogun government approves reconstruction of governor's large road projects. Fubara's wolves started from listening to those who wanted to oppose me, says FCT Minister Barsanyason Wike. And working our way down to some more stories, NCDMB, BOI, inaugurate committee for $100 million Nigerian Content Equity Fund. NDLEA intercepts cocaine concealed in mortar. Backpack bound for China, Italy in Lagos. Adeleke alleges plots to arrest 46 Akot party leaders ahead of Guba polls. Now, of course, pictures of prominence captured here to the left and right, starting off with that of Africa Emerging Markets Forum. From left to right is Mr. Olaimi Kadoso, Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria, alongside Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General, World Trade Organization, and Mr. Harinda Kohli, Founding Director and Chief Executive, Emerging Markets Forum, at the 7th Africa Emerging Markets Forum held at the Central Bank of Nigeria, head office, Abuja, recently. And right next to it is the Nigeria Ports Authority NPA Managing Director, Dr. Abubakar Dansoho, receiving in audience the chairman of Bua Group, Abdul Samad Rabiu, at the NPA headquarters in Lagos recently on a walk-in visit. These are the stories captured on the Nigerian News Direct.
Away from the Nigerian News Direct, let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper next. Headlined on the Daily Trust 2027, fresh debate over Tinubu's qualification. And then you'd find a quote beneath as the annotation. If you want to upload somebody's qualification, you start from primary school, then secondary school, and then university. You don't jump from primary school to university. That gives room for suspicions, especially for a president that has been dogged by academic controversies, unquote. Above that lead headline, beneath the masthead, bandits kill 8 family members, 4 others in Sokoto. Abuja infrastructure boom pushes up rents. Daily Trust economists to FG convert gains to structural transformation. Still on the front page of the Daily Trust, let's take a look at the rider. On the rider, you'd find flood displaces families, destroys houses in Yobe, with a picture of prominence showing the aftermath of a flash floods and displaced residents evacuating their belongings after a flood hit several communities in Yobe states over the weekend. Nigeria finishes 7th, misses Glasgow 2026 medal targets. Recapitalization, NICOM clears 43 insurance firms. And lastly, Woman murdered over alleged witchcraft in Bauchi. Woman murdered over alleged witchcraft in Bauchi. Those are the headline stories on the Daily Trust.
Well, from the Daily Trust, we skip over to the Punch newspaper and we hear that concerning abandoned projects in the country, the federal government has barred ministries from awarding unfunded contracts to contractors. I'll take the headline story as it reads. Abandoned projects is a catchphrase in red. Federal government bars ministries from awarding unfunded contracts. 3 strap lines attached to the headline story on the Punch newspaper. Treasury tightens rules to curb abandoned projects, unpaid liabilities, fiscal indiscipline. MDA's accounting officers face ICPC action for approving unfunded projects. BPP to reject no objection request without proof of available funds. And right beside the masthead, one story, despite billions spent, over 6,500 PHCs still non-functional. Let's come down to some stories at the bottom, starting off with the feature stories to the right side. Power tussle rocks Obi, Kwankwaso campaign teams. Nigeria earns 24 trillion naira from crude exports in 6 months. Fake agency scandal. Controversial DG fights back. Fingers more MDAs. Speeding driver killed in Lagos road crash. Insurance recapitalization. NICOM clears 43 insurers, reviews 8. Now pictures of prominence here inserted. You'd find kidnapped victims rescued by troops of Sector 2 Operation Fansanyama at the forward operating base in Kaswandaji, Kaura Namoda local government area of Zamfara State on Sunday. Photo credit goes to the Nigerian Army. These are the stories on the Punch newspaper.
Away from the Punch this morning, let's take a look at This Day newspaper next. Headlined on this day, you'd find Adeleke to Osun voters, ignore threats, troop out to vote accord on August 15. I'll take that again. Adeleke to Osun voters, ignore threats, troop out to vote accord on August 15. Imole campaign council alerts nation, international community, IGP on unsettled political climate in states. Olawekpo Hashim urges people to stand with party despite governor's alleged disloyalty, rejects Tinubu's endorsement. AAC debates boycott shows APC, ADC's others unprepared to lead states. Oyeteloye charges police on neutrality, security. The picture of prominence beneath that has the caption, at Ardell holding 31st annual general meeting. Atiku, attacks on Onaekon validates Tinubu's intolerance for dissent and truths. Above the masthead, 43 insurance firms kill Nikon's recapitalization hurdle. Axela strengthens market leadership with 10 million LTI free man hours and dual credit rating milestones. Those are the headline stories on this day.
Well, moving over as we continue to get more reportage this morning from the front pages. Let's take a look at the Vanguard newspaper on the front page. 10 trillion naira investments in 13 years fail to lift power supply. We are resetting the sector, claims the power minister. More bonds issuance on the way. Federal government, Gencos disagree over 6.2 trillion naira debt. Subsidy claims padded, consumers allege. Now, this story is elaborated on news page 11 of the Vanguard newspaper. Right above the masthead, Dangote, Simona signed $800 million MOU to expand Itori cement plant capacity to 12 MTPA. NICOM completes recapitalization, clears 41 insurers. Presidency slams Atiku over criticism of federal government's economic policies. And walking our way down, you'd find former President Jonathan's visit to President Bola Tinubu. The picture there with the caption, President Bola Tinubu, former President Goodluck Jonathan during the former president's visit to the presidential villa in Abuja yesterday. And right next to it, Kogi State Governor Usman Ododo at the passing out parade of the first batch of 530 armed forest guards in Lokoja, Kogi State over the weekend. Some more stories on Nikon. Northern Christians, Senator Sani, others defend Catholic bishops. Catholic priests not like fake bishops, Atiku says. Flays presidency's attack on Onayekon. They speak truth to power, Senator Shehu Sani claims. Osun poll. Plot to arrest 46 Accord leaders uncovered. Adeleke Campaign Council cries out. Civil servants to Finance Minister, pay us or face our wrath. Lastly, 6 soldiers killed. Father, sons burnt alive as terrorists attacked Zamfara Sokoto communities. These are the stories featured on the Vanguard newspaper.
With that, we move on to the Daily Independent. On the Daily Independent this morning, you'd find the lead headline as it reads: Early recovery in manufacturing sector faces steep hurdles. Early recovery in manufacturing sector faces steep hurdles. The picture of prominence beneath that shows former President Goodluck Jonathan being received during a courtesy visit to the presidential villa in Aso Rock on Sunday by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. 50 trillion naira financing gap threatens rebound of Nigeria's real sector. Presidency to Atiku, stop using carpet begging approach to criticize Tinubu. Dangote partners Sinoma in $800 million deal to double Itori cement capacity. 2027, prominent leaders asked Atiku, Obi, Makinde, others to form united opposition. Atiku faults presidency's attack on Onayeka, backs Catholic bishops. AA gives INEC 48 hours over alleged exclusion of candidates. Serap to Tinubu, probe 6.7 billion naira police scam, recover missing firearms. Gunmen abduct 3 in Enugu church, 1 rescued. Those are the headline stories on the Daily Independent.
With 2 more newspapers to go, let's speak of the Guardian newspaper with a headline: 10 insurers risk liquidation as 43 scale recapitalization hurdle. Well, big story found on news page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. This is closely followed beneath by an infographics of the recapitalization story, with the recapitalization scorecard at 43 operators that have been successfully cleared. Strategic impact and public trust, powering large-scale national projects, restoring trust through claims resettlement, digital-first competition, 10 firms facing liquidation or forced mergers, and 1.5 trillion naira industry gross premium. More stories scattered at the bottom. Onayekon, Atiku, Christian leaders, Huriwa attack presidency. Atiku, presidency beaker over economic performance, Nigerians' reality. Nigeria in $15 billion flood losses as experts see wider insurance coverage. Oye warns of FX market vulnerability, high SMEs mortality. CPPE puts Nigeria's real sector financing gap at 50 trillion naira. Osun 2026, CSO urges credible election as parties seek last-minute support. Let's see one last story at the top before we move on to our last newspaper. Axila strengthens market leadership with 10 million LTI free man hours and dual credit rating milestones. These are the stories on the Guardian newspaper.
Away from the Guardian, our penultimate newspaper on the lineup is the Nigerian Tribune. A quick look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. 2027, you'd find eminent Nigerians float G100 to push for single presidency candidates, to convene National Council of Opposition Leaders in 2 weeks, unveil doctrine of necessary democratic opposition, wants Atiku, Obi, Makinde, others to unite. Nigeria's domestic petrol supply rises to 78.6%. from 38.9% in 2025, according to a report. Troops rescue 34 kidnapped victims, arrest ISWAP informant, recover arms. The sidebar: scientists develop pills that stop measles virus spreading. Osun, Gbenga Hashim urges the court supporters, stakeholders to close ranks, vote Adeleke. Obasanjo urges church to confront insecurity, poverty with militant faith. Above the masthead on the Nigerian Tribune, you'd find a few concluding headlines there. Again, presidency chides Onayenko. 43 insurance, 43 reinsurance firms scale recapitalization hurdles as NICOM declares new era. Awolowo Foundation opens nomination for 2026 Leadership Prize Sectorial Leadership Awards. Those are the headline stories on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, these are the many stories that would guide and inform our line of discussion on the program this morning. We'll take a break. When we return, we hope to have our guests join us for in-depth discussions on Morning Express. Stay tuned.
Did you know vote buying and vote selling is a criminal offense? Under Nigerian law, the punishments for vote buying and selling includes a fine of 5 million naira, a 2-year jail term, or both. Through strict legislative updates to the repealed Electoral Act 2022 ahead of the upcoming general elections, the National Assembly significantly stiffened these penalties. Under the current legal framework, Section 22 of the new Electoral Act 2026, the fine was escalated from previous limits, which capped punishment at 500,000 naira and 12 months in prison, to not less than 5 million naira and a jail term of not less than 2 years. Additionally, convicted offenders face a mandatory 10-year ban from contesting any election in Nigeria. The stiffened penalties apply explicitly to anyone who unlawfully possesses a voter's card, sells or attempts to sell a voter's card, buys or offers to buy a vote, or sells and offers to sell their votes. If votes don't count, who will try to buy them? Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign.
Did you know the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) will begin the distribution of permanent voter cards across Osun State from Wednesday, the 22nd of July 2026, ahead of the Osun State governorship election on Saturday, the 15th of August 2026. According to the Osun State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, the exercise is for newly registered voters, citizens who apply for a transfer of their voter registration, those who requested replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, as well as voters who are yet to collect their cards from previous will begin at the registration area centers from Wednesday, the 22nd of July, before moving to INEC local government area offices from Wednesday, the 29th of July to Friday, the 7th of August, between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily, including weekends. Remember, PVC collection is strictly personal. No one can collect your card on your behalf, and without your PVC, you cannot be accredited or vote on election day. As Osun prepares to elect its next.
Every day, across forests, highways, towns, and villages, brave men and women stand watch so that Nigeria can sleep. They leave their families behind, confront danger head-on, and make sacrifices many of us will never see. Yet, the enemies of our nation continue their assault. They target our children. They murder innocent citizens. They force families from their homes. They turn thriving communities into places of fear and uncertainty. Their goal is simple: to break our spirit, divide our people, and steal the future of our nation. But Nigeria is stronger than terror. As we demand greater accountability, stronger security measures, and more effective action from those entrusted with our safety, we must also play our part. Support our security forces, salute their gallantry, stand with those who stand for us. If you see something, say something. Let us be our brother's keeper. We must never surrender to fear, despair, or hopelessness. This is not the time for division, not by tribe, not by religion, not by region, not by political party. Because terror recognizes no ethnicity, no faith, and no ideology. Its enemy is all of us. And together, united as one people, we can defeat it. For our children, for our communities, for our future, for Nigeria. Join the movement. Stand for our country. Stand for one another. Hashtag Unite Against Terror.
Every second, a story breaks.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has formally presented the 2026 appropriation bill to the National Assembly.
The nation reacts. The world shifts. History moves in real time. Before the noise, before the opinions. One screen keeps you connected. From the headlines shaking the nation to the stories everyone talks about tomorrow. Of you.
Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned to Morning Express as we look to kickstart dialogues around prominent issues of the news this morning. We're joined by a public affairs analyst virtually as we review the newspaper headlines. Tewase Lawrence joins us from Makudi, the Benue State capital. Tewase, good morning to you and welcome to the program.
All right, thank you. And as always, it's a pleasure being here today again.
All right, let me lay a background into our first talking point this morning, and it's off the back of comments made by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria. John Cardinal Onayinkan said that the president should not have said all is fair in politics, warning that it is indeed a dangerous statement to make. Yesterday, speaking through his media spokesperson, former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar criticized the remarks coming in from the presidency, which clamped down on John Cardinal Onayinkan's comments, saying that he was selective and using outdated data to analyze the economic gains of the Renewed Hope agenda. Now, it's based on the premise of what many perceive to be religious tolerance. Key opposition figures have petitioned President Donald Trump over the Muslim ticket of the APC going into the 2027 general elections, and the narratives making the rounds between the comments coming in from the presidency and the view of John Cardinal Onayinkan seems to be viewed through the prism of religion. What do you make about this supposed attempt to stoke the polity?
Let me believe that as a man resident in Nigeria or as a woman resident in Nigeria, you would agree with me that a lot of issues have been going on within the political landscape, and within the political landscape, truth is what many people don't always like to hear. Lies have been institutionalized in a way that if you don't lie, you might actually remain irrelevant, as the case may be. As regards Bishop Onayinkan's comments yesterday, I think many people, the narratives that have been flying around regarding the religious flaming or say political flaming of issues here are just sentimental biases, because there are no facts to substantiate those claims. Yesterday, the man attended the meeting, and what he said there was for the good of Nigerians. He did not, and according to one of the statements made by the the spokesperson to the presidency was that the bishop cardinal spoke on behalf of the Catholics and not really the Christians. So questions began flying around who are Christians and who are Catholics. Catholics are equally Christians. And according to the man's statement, it was not meant for the Catholics. Perhaps if you read what he said, there is no point identified in his speech where he emphatically pointed out that Catholics are suffering. He only said that Nigerians are suffering. That means whether you are a Pentecostal, whether you are a Catholic, whether you are an Islam, whether you are a member of the PDP, the suffering is affecting everybody. And perhaps he criticized President Tinubu's administration for not living up to the mandate, constitutional mandate. I mean, the economic mandate, where life is getting tougher by day by day. And if you look at the numbers, they are very much there for the talking. Since it took over in 2015, you could see that inflation has also reached the rooftop. It has gone to a record high. You could see that the price of fuel has increased. And if you go to any fuel station now, whether you are a member of APC, PDP, or whether you are NMDP or whatever party you claim to affiliate yourself with, whether you are a Christian or an Islam, whether you are a Catholic or a Pentecostal, the price is almost the same. So one thing about this is that whether we argue or not, the consequences are there for everybody. The consequences don't spare anybody, regardless of your religious affiliation. And the attempt by the presidency to accuse the cardinal of making those comments were just a fruitless attempt to excuse the government from the failures which the cardinal pointed out clearly. And this is Nigeria, where truth now looks more like a crime, and then lies looks more like truth to the hearing of the people.
Now, Mr. Tewase, in a moment we'll still come to the comments of the cardinal and the response of the presidency. However, let's focus on what President Bola Tinubu said about his administration's religious tolerance and inclusivity and all. My co-host here had given a background to some of the calls made by opposition leaders to, Donald Trump and the rest. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu continues to state vehemently that his administration is committed to religious tolerance. But when you go to the social media space, the case seems to be different, because we have seen supporters of the current administration, supporters of President Bola Tinubu, unleash, mayhem on the name and person of the revered cardinal on social media, just for making certain statements that they felt like was discrediting the efforts of the administration of President Bola Tinubu. I just want you to react to the entire story from this angle.
Well, Nigeria being a very multi-diverse religious entity. I'm talking about a country that is made up of different religions. Whoever comes into the picture of any negotiation, or who makes an appearance, or who makes a comment on public issues, now situate the conversation within and determine how people are going to react to such situation. What actually happened from the presidency was the President Tinubu's administration was actually reacting to the comment made by the opposition that he was only being bittered by the comment of coming from the Reverend Cardinal, because the man is a Christian and the man is from the Catholic Church. So people are now trying to remind him of what happened leading up to his elections in 2023. Yeah, 2023. You remember there were allegations at that time that there were bishops who actually endorsed him. Most of the identities of these bishops were not really confirmed, and up to date, many people are still questioning the credibility and actually the existence of such bishops. So yesterday, when the Reverend Cardinal made the comments, criticized him brutally, in quote, it was a brutal confrontation and criticism. According to Nigerians' interpretation, he was angered, and of course, when his spokesperson was said, by then trying to counter his position with some facts. Atiku came in. Atiku, as an opposition candidate, came in to say that the facts were actually outdated. They are not in alignment with the current realities. So it was like people were like he was angry because he's coming from a Catholic bishop, because his conscience regarding what he was accused of doing in 2023 is still fresh in the minds of the people right now. So it wasn't as if the bishop made any wrong, but the administration was trying to see to it that the criticisms were too harsh for the government to take, and coming from a Catholic bishop, it means that they were trying to let the people, the government, see to it that he holds nothing against the Catholic bishop, and
yeah, we can hear you, Mr. Lawrence. Carry on, please. Hello? Mr. Lawrence? Well, it may seem that he's still trying to fix his connection there, or perhaps his audio. Well, but he has been making quite very important points here. It's about the concept of religious tolerance, again, winding back to Mr. President's comments. We have seen in the last couple of months, especially with regards to insecurity and the current realities of economic realities that Nigerians face, we've seen Muslim clerics criticize the current administration heavily. Although it might not be directly during a meeting with the president or during an interview or whatnot, but we have seen on several occasions, perhaps in meetings, religious meetings or in mosques, these clerics criticize the presidency, and we don't seem to get this sort of overblown reaction from the president's handlers. What really makes this any different? Is it the person, the person of the revered cardinal, or is it because it's coming from Catholic bishops? If the president really is stating that he has religious tolerance and that there is a level playing ground, I don't see how this should have been much of an issue the way it has now been blown out of proportion.
Now, this also brings me back to some of the calls for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to address the nation, as re-echoed by many Nigerians who believe that he should have regular addresses as a servant of the people, because his office is more of a servant leader position. Yeah. And he's chosen the approach of speaking to certain groups at different times and hosting the Catholic bishops, much like we saw him host former President Goodluck Jonathan at the Villa yesterday. It was commendable up until people started dissecting statements that were made there. It started from his rhetorics that the oppositions were scared of 2027, that it was a fight to finish and whatnot. I think the position of the Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria at that meeting were very valid. They spoke to issues of the economy and more so on ways to be able to fortify places of worship as against the onslaught of terrorism and bandits. But now looking at it from the prism of the reply that is coming in from the likes of Daniel Bwala, is something I always condemn. We can speak to the issues without making it a religious affair.
Or have a religious tonation.
Yes. So most times you find that Nigerians are very sentimental and we hold some values very dear to heart. Top of those values are religions and then ethnicity.
That's true.
And it still brings back to mind some of the comments made by Vice President Keshim Shettima at the 80th birthday of Senator Jonah Jang, the former Plateau governor, yesterday. Yeah. He has asked Nigerians to refrain from debating on issues of national interest through such myopic views of religion and ethnicism. Like you rightly pointed out, we've seen criticisms from almost everyone in the country reflecting on the state of the nation and the rising cost of living. But now narrowing it down to say someone is speaking on the view of bishops or Catholics and it's not generally the view of Nigerians, I think from the handlers of the presidency, those comments should not be emanating. If not for anything, Tewase was even making reference to pre-2023 general elections when some of those viral videos went around about bishops whose identity could not be verified. But the Catholic Bishop Conference of Nigeria is a verified association, an organization.
Verified and well-respected at that.
Exactly. And then for persons like John Cardinal Onayinkan, beyond being a member of the Catholic Bishops Conference of Nigeria, he's also a member of the National Peace committee.
Yeah.
And quite symbolically, they were in Osun State just a couple of days ago to remind the political actors, 14 political parties in the Osun 2026 off-cycle election, of the need to append their signatures and pledge to keeping peace even before and after the elections. I didn't see anybody saying he's speaking for only the Catholics in Osun State at such an engagement. So if you have revered fathers of faith reminding the government on the need to protect the lives and properties of citizens, which is a core responsibility of government, I don't think we should be basing or reducing their comments to being religiously stirred or not. At this point, let's see if we can reconnect with Tewase to get his thoughts as we also move on to some of the contradicting claims from the camp of former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and the presidency on the economy's performance. Reminded that we have rebased our GDP. The National Bureau of Statistics have rebased statistics for rating our unemployment and our contributors to GDP. Tewase, if you can, do well to rejoin us and let's have your thoughts. I think Tewase's connection has been very unfair to him this morning.
Absolutely. Well, in a moment, we hope that he rejoins as we speak to some of these issues in the news. And of course, much like the other topic concerning the Catholic bishops that the Vice President had lent his voice to, he's also lending his voice to the economy's performance and the presidency's refutal or contradiction of some of these claims. Well, let's just refresh your memory on some of the claims made by the former vice president and the contradictions made by the presidency. This is captured on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Let's take a look at the Nigerian News Direct and the Nation newspaper. Nigeria's economy rebounding, GDP hits $377 billion, says the presidency in its response to Atiku, as it adds that opposition relied on outdated 2024 data to criticize reforms. Defense debt profile, oil revenue, healthcare, and education spending. Well, that's on the Nigerian News Direct. On the Nation newspaper, a similar headline story. Presidency contradicts Atiku's claims on economy's performance. Ex-vice president using outdated data to access economic outlook. Well, the presidency is mainly hammering on the fact that the data presented or argued about by the former vice president are very outdated, is very outdated, and these data are stemming from a 2024 report. But of course, 2024 still falls under the current administration's, tenure. So it might still carry some iota of truth at the end of the day, Bito.
Very true. And more particularly is the criticism that our statistics, in variance with what we have from the IMF and World Bank institutions, when we talk about the rebasing of our economy in GDP terms, we'll find the reviewed unemployment statistics, and people tell you that it's far from what is attainable when you have a sample size that does not reflect the magnitude of unemployment in the country. Now, take for instance, even when you have the World Food Program raise the alarm on the severity of our poverty and hunger with an impending food crisis, and they say we need about $89 million to be able to shore up for responses in northeast Nigeria. People keep arguing, do we really know the statistics of those who are vulnerable? Is our social register up to date? What's even the population of Nigeria, noting that we have missed 2 census cycles? So I think beyond rebasing an economy and looking at it in GDP terms, some of these reforms and gains need to be able to be translated in real time into an improved quality of life of Nigerians. People talk about their disposable incomes. Just the other day, there were also pledges from the Minister of Defense, General Christopher Musa, retired, talking about the plan to increase soldiers' salaries to 100,000 naira from 49,000 naira. So when you look at these different conversations about how much disposable income people have as against a living income, the disparity beyond GDP gains and what the country looks to attract in foreign direct investments should translate into an improved living standard for Nigerians, if you ask me.
Well, quite very brilliant analysis here by Bijou Brian. Let's see if we can rejoin our guest, Tewase Lawrence, joining from the Benue State capital. Hello, Ms. Lawrence. Are you back with us on the line?
All right, I'm back.
Did you get the background to the discussion as laid out by my co-host here?
Yes, I do. I do.
All right, please carry on.
Okay. Normally, government spokesperson, particularly by Onanuga, pointed to improve their fiscal revenues, increase their investor confidence, and perhaps a stable foreign exchange market. But if you look at the reality of the Nigerian market now, the macroeconomics, as pointed by the presidential spokesperson, contradicts what we have in the market right now. And it is this particular disconnect that the former vice president, Atiku Abubakar, sought to highlight when he accused the administration of relying on outdated economic indices to justify its economic narrative right now. You know, whether one agrees with Atiku or not, this is not beyond politics at this point, because what we are facing right now is no longer politics, but economic hardship. His criticisms, of course, it touches on the growing frustration amongst the majority of Nigerians who are buying fuel at very expensive prices. The cost of food in the market is also very high. You know, school fees. There are more dropout school children right now, and you know, there are so many. They don't just rely on theories. If you talk about the GDP, the gross domestic product, inflation trends, and you look at the external reserves, debt servicing ratios, and all those indices, you know, there are intentionally recognized indicators of any economic improvement. But in a country where the past is always looking better than the present, or even looking more like it will be better than the future, you can't claim it to be, you know, an economically thriving nation, regardless of the policies you might debate about. You know, they matter because they matter here because they provide the measurable evidence for policy decisions. Because if you implement something and your result is failure, you have to go back to the drawing board to know where and what actually was wrong with that particular policy or that particular initiative, and then, you know, tailor more recommendations on how to re-implement it to get the success you deserve. Yes, today millions of us, millions of Nigerians judge the economy not by quarterly reports, but what happens at the market, you know, what happens at the fuel station, the pharmacy, the school gate, you know, even in churches, there are businesses within the church premises, even in mosque as well. They judge it by whether salaries last until the end of the month, whether transport fares, bags of transport fares are enough for them, and then the prices for the bags of rice have increased or have remained stable or have dropped. You know, all those things. So what Atiku actually accused the presidency of wasn't really for political reasons. Yes, one may argue otherwise, but for me, I see it as a very transparent economic analysis and criticisms. Yeah, perhaps the presidency might bring outdated data from of the past to excuse themselves from the accusation, but the reality differs from theory. Okay, let's go back to the drawing board and start look at the data. How much was fuel in 2023? At least fuel was less than 1,000 naira, but since then, fuel has been fluctuating between 1,400 to 1,200 and in that order. How much was an average Nigerian school fees in primary school or even in university? I remember during my undergraduate days where I paid school fees at, I think, 18,000 in my final year. Those days, that it was about 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I paid school fees at 18,000, but the same institutions, the same cost now. The school fees is over 50,000 naira. When you factor in other, registration expenses, a new entrant spends close to 500,000 naira. Okay, how much? Okay, you are living in Abuja, for example. You work in the central area, and your house is resident at Kubwa. How much was did you use to transport yourself from to the central area? Compare what you used to spend at that time with what we have right now. I think if you have 5,000 naira in your bank account, you shouldn't, you wouldn't be even courageous enough to tell somebody that you have something to even get mama put food by the roadside. I'm talking about these unconventional food sales and all of that.
Now, Mr. Lawrence, the discussion that we had before you rejoined was towards how translatable some of these gains can be to the common man. How can the federal government explain some of these policies that might seem very wonderful on paper and quite promising to the Tinubu-led administration? How can the government or the federal government ensure that they don't only tell Nigerians that the economy is doing well, they don't only defend their debt, the country's debt profile, oil revenues, spendings in healthcare, in education, in the power sector and whatnot? Are we seeing these policies taking effect and changing the lives of Nigerians on a daily basis? Or is it a long-term thing that Nigerians will have to wait for some sort of result, perhaps during the president's second term in office?
Okay, you agree with me that for a long while you say that most of the policies have not been working, but it seems nobody has been talking about the reason behind the failures of the policies that looks quite impressive on the paper. You know, the debate in the Senate, the debate in the Legislative House, always impressive. But when you come to the reality, the implementation is always the problem. You see that the major reason is lack of research, lack of research. You know, for you as a leader to implement something that will bring, substantive progress or impact to the lives of the people you are governing, you have to go close to the people. You have to go closer even to know their needs, because you don't sit in the corner of your office and assume that people in so area needs this, or people in so area needs this. Perhaps it will sound good on paper, but by the time you take these things closer to the people you are governing, you see to it that the gap which was existent there before the policy deliberation was not really identified. So whatever you bring to those people at that time will not make any impact. So by the time you bring it and the result is massive failure, you cannot go back and beat your chest that the economic strides are making, they are making waves. Your economic initiatives are making waves. Perhaps they are failing. And again, it's not just about deliberating policies. When you deliberate an impressive policy and you constitute a task force, implementation task force, do you follow up on the implementation? Most times, 90% of the times, those people constituted don't even go to those places to implement it. Sometimes they even siphon, or maybe they use only a sample size of the total population presented before the presidency, extend this gesture to them, and then inflate the figures back to the presidency that they have carried out the initiative. The presidency will sit there and will be like, okay, we have believed you. We have seen the figures. We have seen what you have done. So if the administration actually wants Nigerians to believe in its economic success story, then it must ensure that the story moves beyond all those charts, bar charts and then policy briefs into homes, market, factories, and the farms. But then, until then, a favorable economic report will continue to be met with so many pertinent questions. Like, if the numbers are improving, why are people suffering? There are differences between wants and needs. You might think sharing or rice is a major problem of people who have been attacked somewhere in Otoko local government area of Benue State. Is that rice going to bring the dead to life? Is that rice going to shelter the people, the few people who are still living? No. Go closer and look at what those people need to escape from the trauma of the war or the attack. Maybe some of them need shelter at that point. Some of them need financial backup to get back to their feet. But the moment you stay from a distance and assume, you do things by assumption, policies will continue to fail. While you keep on preaching economic stability and economic, improvement, the reality will continue to contradict what you are saying. So this is where the major problem is.
All right, let's also take a look at some of the statistics as banded by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu Media Center on X. A trip to their verified handle, you'd find an infographics with some of the campaign promises. It's how is the Renewed Hope Manifesto promise faring? They've listed a number of promises and the status of the promises First up on the list is the foreign exchange reform, which they say you can find on page 11 of the manifesto. They're saying it's a promise fulfilled. Fiscal discipline and deficit management, they're also saying that has been fulfilled as well, alongside investment inflows and markets, the consumer credit, core, tax reform acts, crude oil production and gas pipelines, Electricity Act of 2023, the amended PIA Act, fuel subsidy removal, educational reforms, NEL Fund Students Loan, NYSC reforms, Judicial Welfare and Pension Acts, local government autonomy, decentralization and devolution of power, bilateral diplomatic missions, and then they talk about some citations for in-progress promises, counter-terrorism and banditry. They say it's ongoing. Renewed Hope Cities and Estates, ongoing. Presidential CNG initiative, ongoing. I'm just picking some of those ones that are a little bit contentious, like the Presidential CNG initiative, and also the primary health care centers and vulnerable household cash transfers. I'll come back to you, Tewase. You'd react. We'd also have some of these images on screen for our viewers at home to also look at. When you talk about something like the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas Initiative, PCNGI, its implementation and adoption is largely questionable across the 36 states and the FCT. We're supposed to see it as some of the buffers towards fuel subsidy removal, but even a closer investigation into that would have some of the reports from the NNPCL suggesting that Nigeria still expends money on what is called the energy security expenses, which has been questioned as, is this a subsidy in disguise? So having looked at some of the manifestos of the Renewed Hope agenda, which has the status of fulfilled, are you satisfied with the ongoing progress in terms of the efforts to keep with campaign promises?
Well, I wouldn't lie to you, and I wouldn't lie to myself that the stuff, the promises, the campaign promises there have been fulfilled. Perhaps we have read a few of them where the presidency have, confirmed the successful implementation, and we have also heard from the Nigerian citizens of being beneficiaries of some of those campaign promises. For example, the student NEL fund, but in most of the, for the most part, I haven't really, personally, I haven't really seen the empirical fulfillment of these facts we are talking. I mean, the promises we are talking about here. Okay, let's digress these issues one by one, like the major ones I would like to talk, two or three of them there. The student NEL fund, perhaps the major aim of the loan is to assist students, to assist vulnerable students who are financially capable to fund their education. But then let's look at the other side of it. For everything that has advantage must have the disadvantage. And the gross, my gross picture here is not just about the implementation of all these things. What is the expected consequence of implementing this? For the NEL fund, it is expected that students who collect the loan would be able to pay the loan throughout the time he or she stays in the academic environment, and even after graduation, the person would be able to, complete the payment. But this is in this country where there are no jobs. There is a very low level of human capital development in terms of capacity building, where somebody can graduate from the tertiary institutions and then find his or her footing in the labor market. How do you expect the person to continue paying the loan when there are the economic environment, the streets are not enabling enough for somebody to use the skills he or she has learned to get something to pay back the loan? It now brings an enormous burden on the people that when they graduate, they know they are still owing the government. In the country, one of the mandates of the government is to constitutional mandate is to provide affordable education. So why would the government now increase the school fees beyond the affordability of an average Nigerian and then compel them to collect a loan that will now have extra burden on the shoulders of these people?
Quite very strong, important questions you've raised here, Mr. Lawrence, but we must let you go at this moment. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and for joining the conversation this morning. We wish you a great week ahead.
And thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. At this point, I would like to refresh the memory of some of our viewers on part of the comments made when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu hosted the Catholic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Some of the discussions at that forum are now subject of debate, with former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar stepping in to defend John Cardinal Oneyinka on his position of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's comments that all is fair in politics. You'd also take a listen to some of the affirmations made by the president to securing the lives of Nigerians while insisting that he would remain the valid candidate going to 2027. Take a listen.
We recall that this matter was raised during our meeting with you last year, and we remain hopeful that your government will take the necessary steps towards its implementation. Second, in the light of the Supreme Court judgment of 10 February 2026, affirming the constitutional right of Muslim students at Rivers State University to freedom of religion and worship, we respectfully request that Your Excellency direct the appropriate ministries, departments, and agencies of government to ensure that this same constitutional principle is faithfully implemented throughout the Federation.
The security situation is what it is. We don't have another country but here, this Nigeria. And we revert to our national anthem. In this complexity, diversity, we shall thrive, live, rejoice, and be good to all of us as humanity. And that is what we're doing. Yes, I've seen that the challenges are there. I inherited it. I didn't run away. I asked for this job, and I'm in it.
Every second, a story breaks.
President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has formally presented the 2026 appropriation bill to the National Assembly.
The nation reacts. The world shifts. History moves in real time. Before the noise, before the opinions. One screen keeps you connected. From the headlines shaking the nation to the stories everyone talks about tomorrow. Stream anytime, anywhere. When the story matters, you know where to turn. Adbn. A part of you.
Every day, across forests, highways, towns, and villages, brave men and women stand watch so that Nigeria can sleep. They leave their families behind, confront danger head-on, and make sacrifices many of us will never see. Yet, the enemies of our nation continue their assault. They target our children. They murder innocent citizens. They force families from their homes. They turn thriving communities into places of fear and uncertainty. Their goal is simple: to break our spirit, divide our people, and steal the future of our nation. But Nigeria is stronger than terror. As we demand greater accountability, stronger security measures, and more effective action from those entrusted with our safety, we must also play our part. Support our security forces, salute their gallantry, stand with those who stand for us. If you see something, say something. Let us be our brother's keeper. We must never surrender to fear, despair, or hopelessness. This is not the time for division, not by tribe, not by religion, not by region, not by political party. Because terror recognizes no ethnicity, no faith, and no ideology. Its enemy is all of us. And together, united as one people, we can defeat it. For our children, for our communities, for our future. for Nigeria. Join the movement. Stand for our country. Stand for one another. Hashtag Unite Against Terror.
Did you know the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) will begin the distribution of permanent voter cards across Osun State from Wednesday, the 22nd of July 2026, ahead of the Osun State governorship election on Saturday, the 15th of August 2026. According to the Osun State Resident Electoral Commissioner, Mrs. Oluwatoyin Babalola, the exercise is for newly registered voters, citizens who apply for a transfer of their voter registration, those who requested replacement of lost or damaged PVCs, as well as voters who are yet to collect their cards from previous registration exercises. PVC distribution will begin at the registration area centers from Wednesday, the 22nd of July, before moving to INEC local government area offices from Wednesday, the 29th of July to Friday, the 7th of August, between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. daily, including weekends. Remember, PVC collection is strictly personal. No one can collect your card on your behalf, and without your PVC, you cannot be accredited or vote on election day. As Osun prepares to elect its next governor and deputy governor, visit your designated PVC collection center before the deadline. Collect your permanent voter cards and take your place in deciding the future of Osun on Saturday, the 15th of August, 2026. Get your PVC. Protect your vote.
Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign.
In Biggie's house, there is no place to hide. And even when you think no one is watching, the energy can swing in an instant. This BB Naija Season 11, everything burns brighter. Only the biggest moves tip the
Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned to Morning Express as we continue our second half of discussions on prominent issues in the news. Now, with less than 6 months to the 2027 general elections, fresh debates on the educational qualifications of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have resurfaced. Greeting the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning is the lead headline that speaks to that issue. On the other hand, the constitutional provisions for a person vying for the office of the president in Nigeria, as captured in section 131D, only says that a qualification of at least a school certificate or its equivalent is required. If you take a look at the annotation beneath the lead story, 2027, fresh debates over Tinubu's qualification, it says, and I quote, "If you want to upload someone's qualification, you start from primary school, then secondary school, and university. You do not jump from primary school to university. That gives room for suspicion, especially for a president that has been dogged by academic controversies," unquote. Well, at this point, we'd look to introduce our guest who will be joining us on the program, and Chijoke will do us the honors.
Well, certainly. Let's welcome in a public affairs analyst joining from Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, Mr. Olukunle Durodolu. A very good morning to you, sir. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's head straight right into it. You have heard the introduction to this particular story, and of course, it's surrounding the 2027 general elections. And once
it's a dead issue.
Why?
And what do I mean by a dead issue? The issue has been taken to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has adjudicated on it. I don't think anything new has come forward between that time and now, except the old issues of certificate issue that some people still continue to peddle around. What the Nigerian Constitution requires is that somebody should show evidence that the person attend at least a primary, a secondary school certificate. And from my own point of view, you cannot enter into secondary school unless you produce evidence of having attended primary school. And from secondary school to university, you have to show evidence, which I think President Tinubu has done to those schools. And there was an evidence that he showed in 2023 that he attended a Dali College in US. And from there, Chicago State University confirmed him to be their student.
So I mean, the university certificate at some point was a bone of contention, and which was heavily championed by the ambassador to Mexico, I believe, ambassador designate to Mexico, talking about Renaud Mokri, and now he has rescinded on some of the statements that he has made during the days when he was, on the neck of Mr. President. However, the major issue that is brewing in this matter is the certificate in the middle, the secondary school certificate that is missing. Why hasn't the presidency been able to provide this to perhaps shut the mouths of naysayers and skeptics who continue to raise these issues every now and then?
Well, we can continue to debate it forever. Dali College result was provided the other time, I think in 2023, for 2023 elections. And US confirmed that he attended their schools. And I believe before you enter into a college, you must show evidence that you can function in that capacity. And from there, you proceed to university. Otherwise, how would somebody attain a university education without having gone to primary school? And all what Nigerian Constitution requires is that evidence, nothing more. And we've seen so many governors that, for example, the issue of Governor Adeleke in Osun State had similar tapestry. And eventually he provided, Supreme Court did not agree with all those arguments because he has shown that he attended secondary school. And since university confirmed that Chicago State University confirmed that President Tinubu was their student, I don't think that should generate any controversy again. And besides, it has gone to Supreme Court. Supreme Court has trashed it. They've resolved it after 23 elections that people took it to court. So I don't think anybody still fishing in that water now has anything meaningful to do. From my own point of view, I can't see anything serious about it.
Now, Mr. Durodolu, permit me to come in at this point, and it's based on public perception because even the law provides a window for public verification. Now, in my earlier background to this discussion, I had cited Section 131D of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended in its provisions for presidential qualification. It says even as much as a school leaving certificate is able to guarantee you eligibility to contest for the seat of presidency. Nonetheless, amendments to the Electoral Act of 2026, particularly speaking to Section 29, subsection 3, mandates INEC to publish the personal particulars and academic qualification of all candidates who were successful in the primary and have been uploaded to their portal. They are mandated to do this within a 21-day period. Mind you, since political parties uploaded the names of successful party primary candidates, most of their personal credentials are being posted as we speak, and hence the reason why these fresh debates have started again, because the upload for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is missing the secondary school qualification. So with these improvements in our laws, which continue to be amended as we evolve as a nation, don't you see cogent reason as to why this public verification by Nigerians are questioning why that space is vacant?
I want to believe before you enter into university, you must produce evidence that you attended certain, you acquire a college education. And Nigerian Constitution did not stipulate that unless you produce those results, you will be ineligible. And the constitutions we are talking about was amended in 1999. And the election we held, the last election we held, was in year 2023. So, which means all those things, the Supreme Court judges have looked into it, and they did not see anything wrong. So, why are people raising it now?
I told you why, sir.
But then,
I told you why, sir.
Because, I know.
Because beyond the Constitution, sir.
As long as we continue
Mr. Drojolu, if I may at this point, beyond the Constitution is the Electoral Act, which governs the conduct of every elections. And if Section 29, subsection 3 says that public verification window is 21 days and Nigerians, to build trust, should be able to go through the personal credentials of who they want to elect to serve them, I believe it's a valid question to ask that, oh, I've gone through this credential, oh, I don't happen to see this and that. Can you explain? It's just an explanation. No one is saying it is grounds for disqualification.
And the point is, we can only, from now till tomorrow, our election will be bedeviled with such things. And from my own point of view, they are mundane. Mundane in the sense that somebody has been in power. He has demonstrated that he has enough knowledge to govern the country. The person has shown evidence of university. And before you can enter into university, you must have produced a college degree certificate. So, and INEC did not really stipulate that everything must be in that order. I've seen one of the presidential candidates who was claiming that he attended he attended Harvard, he attended so many colleges. But at the end of the day, the person only submitted the secondary school certificate. And nobody is asking that candidate all these questions.
What presidential candidate is that?
Should the verification be only for President Tinubu? We should not also verify the other candidates that claimed that they have certain degrees.
I mean, the least qualification to run for the office of president in Nigeria is the secondary school, or the highest, I beg your pardon, is the secondary school certificate, not necessarily a degree or a diploma or whatnot from a high institution. So if that candidate is showing a secondary school certificate and neglecting the university certificate, even though he has it or he claims he has it, I don't think it should be a bone of contention. However, the problem now lies in the fact that there is a missing gap. And that's what I don't understand why you do not want to address it head on. There's a missing gap. There is one, there is no two, and we are seeing three. Where is the two?
My own point of view is that if Supreme Court judges were not convinced in 2023, why did they rule that the man was qualified then? And if the man was qualified then, after Supreme Court has looked into all this matter, what will now make the man unqualified today?
Well, quite very important questions you've raised. Just as important as the questions raised by opposition party members.
The highest court in the land, and they've mediated in this matter. So they've not brought anything new. And the Constitution did not state that you must submit all the results.
But you must at least submit the secondary school certificate.
And if somebody produces a university certificate and the university confirmed that this man truly graduated from their institution, can we enter into university without a college degree and without a college certificate?
All right, let's rest it. Let's not overflog the issue. Like you've said, it's a matter that the apex court of the land has looked into, and as much as it's one of the headline stories making the rounds, and we had discussed it. It's going to be left to the court of law to also give its ruling in that regard. Now let's move on, because usually when we approach the election circle, issues of governance, vis-a-vis politicking, seem to find, would I say, a little bridge to crossover in the terms of Nigerians' views. And with the budget performances of the last 3 budgets, the federal government had given an instruction not to accommodate new spendings, but focus on capital spendings. This morning, it's a reassurance coming in from the Minister of Works, Engineer David Umwahi, under the, what I call it, catchphrase now, abandoned projects. He's saying that the government under the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu would not abandon any projects, and is further directing ministries and departments of government to refrain from awarding any unfunded contracts. I like your position on this, because we saw it at the start of the year during the budget defense. It was the questions that were asked to the outgoing Minister of Finance on the challenges with releasing monies to fund government expenditure. Do you see reasons why we have some of these challenges in being able to execute capital spendings by the government as enshrined in the appropriation bill?
Well, I feel Honorable Minister has a point. And if any agency of government is not following it through, the National Assembly can call them, and because they had oversight functions over what the agency of government does. So they can call them and try to find a way so that we can all agree and do what the Constitution says.
Now, usually when these issues happen, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself gave a directive to governors at the sub-national level. He asked them to focus on governance and not dwell into the temptation of establishing legacy projects. I believe when issues like this are debated, we should also look beyond the federal government, because usually some governors are in the habit of being able to execute their legacy projects. And when they inherit the seat of power from even a party which was in power in line with their own party's administration, this perceived prioritization of what you would call legacy projects often overshadows a need assessments to be done at the grassroots level. How do they imbibe this culture as promoted by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to focus on governance as against legacy projects?
I agree, because we cannot continue to create projects that we may not be able to complete. And many governors will abandon the project they inherited just because they want to continue with their legacy project. At the end of the day, some of those governors may not win second term, or their party may not produce a good successor. So when they don't have a successor, another governor will come in. He will abandon all the projects the outgoing administration did, abandon them, and start his own. At the end of the day, it will leave many projects uncompleted at the end of the day, and there will not be proper development. I think the governors should look into that and begin to consider how to find a way so that they will not leave abandoned projects everywhere.
Well, I don't think that the governors looking into the matter on their own will, go a long way in solving the issue, considering the fact that the problem is stemming from the governors who continue to prioritize legacy projects that they want to be remembered for, while abandoning projects instituted or started by previous administrations. I think perhaps we should start veering towards enshrining in our Constitution the fact that whoever comes into power as a governor must at least carry out or continue a certain percentage of projects started by previous administrations and complete them or take them to a certain level. And that way, it will also sort of cut down on excessive government spending by successive administrations. Is this a possibility that you see happening? Because if you leave it in the hands of the governors, at the end of the day, they will still do what works best for them or maintain status quo. But if it's enshrined in the Constitution, every governor, elected governor in any state in Nigeria, has no other option than to abide by what the Constitution says.
It will not be a bad idea if we can initiate a constitutional amendment to mandate governors to continue with the project they inherited. Otherwise, what is the essence of doing a project halfway, and when you did not win second time, another person comes in and they abandon that project completely after state money has been wasted? It will not be a bad idea.
This is not even just about the state governors, but even the federal government. We have seen successive administrations, especially since the inception of the Fourth Republic in 1999. We have seen successive governments come into power and then abandon certain projects that have been started by previous, administrations. I wouldn't want to go through the trajectory of these projects, but you understand what I'm saying. So carry on, sir.
Yes, it should not be a bad idea, but it's just that I think even if you have a constitution provisions for that, maybe it was not specific at that time. So that allows people to, either president from the federal government or states, to still find a way to maneuver it and still do their own selfish intentions. We can find a way to make the law more narrow so that it can mandate them to effectively carry on with the contracts they inherited. Instead of abandoning them, allow state money to go to waste and start their own. It will not be a bad idea if we can initiate a constitution that will mandate them.
All right, Mr. Durodolu, we'll change the topic of discussion now, and we'll hope to let you go to attend to other engagements. But we'd like to talk about the Osun 2026 governorship election. Beyond the accord signing that took place on Friday, where 14 political parties appended to paper their signatures pledging to uphold peace, has been more or less a fractured political landscape in Osun. There's been threats of violence, there's been intimidation on the one hand, there have been accusations flying across camps as to who the sponsors of the violence are. But notwithstanding, we did see the National Peace Committee visit Osun State to get all parties on board in upholding a free, fair, and credible elections. I'd like your honest opinion on the political landscape in Osun State ahead of the August 15 governorship election. Why is there so much tension in the air? And do you foresee the security agencies being able to forestall a breakdown of law and order to allow for a free conduct of the election?
I think our politicians are they are too greedy. Otherwise,
when you say politicians, it's hasty generalization. Would you mind using the word some? Because there seems to be some persons who, by popular opinion, have not been greedy in keeping hold to the state of power.
Many lives have been lost so far in Osun State, and I think the major power brokers are the ones promoting this violence. It's unfair, and I think the people who they are using to perpetrate these heinous crimes should sit down again and evaluate. It's not worth the lives of anybody. Politics should not be a do or die affair, and I don't think people should begin to sacrifice their lives for politicians. Politicians will not use their children for some of these things. So I don't know why people should continue to promote violence and carry about thugs and arming them. It's not healthy for our democracy.
Well, it's certainly not healthy for our democracy, but we have had the longest democratic run or stint since 1999 up until now. and even though riddled with its own problems, it seems to be working so far. When it comes to electoral processes like this or electioneering periods like this is just one of many litmus tests that the INEC would have to undertake gearing into the 2027 elections to show Nigerians whether or not, under the leadership of Professor George Amupitan, the INEC is, fully ready and fit to take care of the 2027 polls. How do you see this panning out beyond the safety of electorates that the IGP has assured people of? Do you see a free, fair, and credible election playing out in Osun come 15th August? And do you see the electoral umpire also being unbiased, considering all the allegations that have been leveled against INEC and the APC in recent times?
We have three parties to our elections: the INEC, the political parties, and the people. If all of them collaborate for a peaceful election, we will have a peaceful election. But if any of them did not agree, they can continue to promote violence. But nevertheless, I will encourage the police and, if possible, the military to make sure they secure that state on election day, so that every form of bloodshed will be put at abeyance, and they will not allow people to be killing themselves indiscriminately. It's unhealthy, and I don't think it's worth it. There will be life after elections, and our people should learn from its elections that witness minimal violence.
Now, Mr. Olukunle Durodolu, we must appreciate you sincerely for taking our time to lend your thoughts to the issues being discussed this morning. We're hopeful in the next few days, Osun off-cycle election would go as smooth and as fair as many envision it to be.
Thank you so much for joining the program, and we wish you the very best of the rest of your day.
It's always a pleasure.
Well, that's the much we can take on this segment of Morning Express. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll still turn our attention to more national matters in the news with our next guest to discuss these issues in-depthly. Stay tuned. Morning Express continues after the break.
Did you know vote buying and vote selling is a criminal offense? Under Nigerian law, the punishment to the repealed Electoral Act 2022 ahead of the upcoming general elections, the National Assembly significantly stiffened these penalties. Under the current legal framework, Section 22 of the new Electoral Act 2026, the fine was escalated from previous limits, which capped punishment at 500,000 naira and 12 months in prison, to not less than 5 million naira and a jail term of not less than 2 years. Additionally, convicted offenders face a mandatory 10-year ban from contesting any election in Nigeria. The stiffened penalties apply explicitly to anyone who unlawfully possesses a voter's card, sells or attempts to sell a voter's card, buys or offers to buy a vote, or sells and offers to sell a vote. All voters are advised against selling their votes. If votes don't count, who would try to buy them? Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign. According to the United Nations population estimate, Nigeria is home to more than 242 million people, with over half of its population under the age of 30. This presents a remarkable demographic advantage, a generation with the numerical strength to influence elections, shape governance, and determine the nation's future. However, for many young Nigerians, the question is no longer simply whether to vote, but whether their vote truly carry power, and whether that power can translate into meaningful and visible change. In this special feature, Grace Ekwe samples the opinions of young Nigerians on the future of elections, political participation, and the growing questions surrounding youth engagement in Nigeria's democratic process. In theory, this youthful population should represent one of the most formidable forces in Nigeria's democracy. However, a striking contradiction persists. A generation vast in size, yet increasingly skeptical about the political process designed to amplify its voice.
But I have already suffered for the last what I did.
So you think say your votes no carry power?
No, you know we do anything now.
Yes, I used to think so, but as we speak, I can't say.
I always have my reservation about that, considering the fact that, at the end of the day, many Nigerians, whether you like it or not, we believe that our vote does not count.
Okay, have you gotten your PVC?
Yeah, I just registered recently.
Okay, so that means you're going to be voting the incoming.
Definitely, I will, because this is my first time of voting, and I'm going definitely to cast my votes. I am positive that my votes counts.
Your votes, they carry power.
My vote, they carry power. If you know they carry power now, there will be no election now.
Happy?
Yes, now, if our votes know they count, there's no reason for any election anywhere in the world now, not even in Nigeria.
Though youth, we normally believe that our vote don't count, but I believe, I just have the belief that INEC will do the right thing this time.
Across communities and public spaces, opinions among young Nigerians remain sharply divided. While some express confidence that their votes still carry significance and can influence electoral outcomes, others speak from a place of doubt, shaped by previous experiences and diminishing trust in the system. Consequently, what emerges is not a unified position, but a complex and evolving conversation about participation, representation, and political relevance. Meanwhile, this conversation extends far beyond the streets. It continues in digital spaces, faster, louder, and often more unfiltered. Across social media platforms, young Nigerians are actively shaping discussions ahead of future elections. Expressions of frustration, political fatigue, skepticism, and cautious optimism compete for attention in real time, exposing how deeply trust in the system has fractured. However, beyond the voices and the posts, the numbers paint a sad picture. In these spaces, democracy is not distant. It is debated in real time, in short messages, comments, and reactions that reveal how deeply divided trust has become. Yet, beneath both street and online conversations lies a clearer pattern, one the statistics begin to expose. According to the Independent National Electoral Commission, more than 37 million young Nigerians between the ages of 18 and 34 registered to vote ahead of the 2023 general elections, accounting for nearly 40% of the country's 93.4 million registered voters. Yet, Overall voter turnout fell to a historic low of around 27%, with young people forming the largest segment of the electorate. The disproportionately low participation highlighted a significant gap between registration and actual voting, a gap rooted in issues of trust, access, and perceived impact.
Many didn't show because I didn't mean on Sunday. I was part of the few who social media pressured to actually show up for the last election.
Okay.
Right? I've had my voter's card for a few years, but that was the first time I was voting because I wanted to make a change, right? But I believe a lot of people I know that didn't come out was their major reasons were distrust in the system. So people no longer believe in the electoral process to be fair. And it all comes down to, at the end of the day, there's no difference. My vote doesn't count and all of that, which is not actually true. Yes, there are hiccups, there might be rigging and all of that.
Yeah.
But most people were either battling with survival, like the economic issues. Some people could not transfer or travel for their votes in their constituencies and all of that. And those who could, many, they no longer believe in the system. So I feel there's a distrust in the electoral process that actually did not make a lot of people come out to vote.
For many young Nigerians, participation extends beyond awareness. Rather, it is rooted in confidence in the fairness, transparency, and credibility of the electoral process. Without this fundamental assurance, democratic participation inevitably becomes uncertain. More importantly, beyond questions of trust lies an even deeper concern: belief in impact. For many young people, the issue is no longer whether voting is important. The real question is whether that importance can produce tangible outcomes and meaningful change.
I honestly think that we do understand the power in our votes, but I think one of the major gaps right now is in our agency. So I understand that, my vote does count, it does carry some power, but do I have the conviction, that makes me believe, oh, with the power in my vote, it can actually translate into practical change. I think that's where some of us are losing faith because, some of us already understand at this point that if my parent didn't carry any books, but if we traveled by it and we are buying with what they used to buy it as little as whatever they live on the streets, right? But do we have the conviction right now? It's something about agency right now. Do I have the conviction? Do I actually believe that the power in that will translate into practical change that we want to see? And that's a very major part. If we can't get past it, I don't think we'll be stopping these conversations anytime soon.
Beyond elections and participation, another major concern is the level of awareness of Nigerians on policies designed to support youth inclusion and development. Most often than not, civic engagement begins and ends at election periods, while broader frameworks that shape youth participation remain largely unfamiliar. One such framework is the National Youth Policy, created to guide youth development, inclusion, and engagement in national life. In response to growing concerns about relevance and implementation, the Federal Ministry of Youth Development has been spearheading nationwide zonal consultations and stakeholder dialogues aimed at reviewing and updating the policy to reflect current realities and emerging youth needs. Although awareness of its existence remains low among young Nigerians.
So on awareness, honestly, if you and when I mean if you and usually referring to like minority or young people understand or even are aware of the policies that exist. So for instance, currently the Federal Ministry of Youth is, reviewing the youth policy, how many of us are aware? How many of us have even seen the framework? And if you're aware about it, how many people have gone further to look at the provisions of that framework? So that framework talks about, it covers governance, covers jobs, covers governance, and, the place of youth in attaining, collaborations or partnerships. It talks about rights, peace, security of young persons. How many of us are aware? How many of us are going through? Because if we're not first aware of what the ministry is offering, what the state, the federal government rather, is offering us or planning to do for us, how are we able to participate, to contribute, to say, oh, this is what I will entitled to? How do I make sure that is manifested in terms of implementation? How are we coming together to ensure accountability and levels of implementation? How are we building, organizing to ensure that we are monitoring and seeing what's happening from the place of, they're currently reviewing it. Last month there was a youth policy dialogue that was put together by the Legislative Legislative Initiative in collaboration with the National Assembly Language Trust Point. How many of us were even aware that conversation happened? So I'm aware because I'm a fellow alumni and I happen to be one of the rapporteurs for the program, but how many of us were in that room? And of those who were there, how many had seen the framework? How many were conversant with it? And how many had opinions as to shaping it? We're able to discuss it, provide solutions, look at, poke some holes in some of the areas and then say, well, we appreciate what you're trying to do, and this as one of the recommendations that we have. But those of us who represented the rest of Nigeria in this very, very tight. And that's very good. We need to do better, knowing what we should do. We need to go out there because they cannot come and spoon feed us some of these things. But we need to, the same way that we look for information about scores, about Grammy Awards, that's the same energy and the same passion we should be using to, okay, what's the ministry doing? Exactly. What ministries are in town? What is happening now? What are state and local governments doing at this time? Okay. How much of that consensus and how are we contributing to is happening?
Nonetheless, one reality remains undeniable. The numerical strength of Nigeria's youth population continues to place them at the center of the country's political future. Indeed, every election cycle, political transition, and governance outcome is significantly influenced by the decisions young people make or choose not to make. Within political circles, this influence is widely acknowledged.
That demography has an overwhelming power to shape who gets elected, how elections are conducted, and the outcome of every election. That's the power the youth demography holds in this country.
Alongside this recognition comes another persistent challenge: unity. While young Nigerians possess considerable strength in numbers, translating that strength into collective action has often proven difficult. Nevertheless, many observers agree that whenever young people mobilize around a common purpose, their influence becomes immediate, visible, and far-reaching.
Coming together is a challenge. Then if we are opportune to come together, the impact we can make is great, huge. It has a lot of influence on the outcome of leadership. Even though we are advocates of youth in leadership, youth in governance, and we strongly believe that young people has a lot to offer if given the opportunity.
Furthermore, a growing number of young Nigerians insist that participation must be accompanied by accountability. Beyond simply casting their vote, many now demand responsive leadership, transparent governance, and leaders who remain accountable long after elections have been won.
It's high time for us to come and just be having only a voting right, and after when we vote, we are no longer relevant as far as anything is concerned. So that is why we want. So yes, we will go out, all out, and vote for the leaders, but of course we have to demand accountability. When we send you to represent us in the government, in politics, then you should be accountable and responsible for your action and inaction.
As the next election draws close, we are reminded that democracy is shaped not just by those who lead, but also by those who choose to participate in it. However, The conversation shifts once again from what has been lost to what is still possible, from disengagement to potential re-engagement. Across streets, digital spaces, and political arenas, one question continues to echo in different forms: what happens next? That question also sits within the context of reforms aimed at widening political inclusion, like the Not Too Young to Run Act, a constitutional amendment bill passed into law by the Nigerian legislature and signed by the late President Muhammad Buhari on the 31st day of May 2018. The law reduced the age requirement for contesting elected offices in Nigeria, formally opening up the political space to younger aspirants and strengthening
PVC, you cannot be accredited or vote on election day. As Osun prepares to elect its next governor and deputy governor, visit your designated PVC collection center before the deadline. Collect your permanent voter cards and take your place in deciding the future of Osun on Saturday, the 15th of August, 2026. Get your PVC. Protect your vote.
Stay updated on our latest series of voter education on the Adbn Enlightenment Campaign.
Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned to ADBN Television's flagship program, Morning Express. As we resume our concluding discussions on the program, it's a reminder that you need to participate in the elections. It's your civic duty. You cannot stand by the sidelines and complain about governance and the choice of leaders if you do not participate. And as much as the registration for permanent voters' cards have closed, it's important to all those who obtained their voters' cards to preserve them and get ready to vote. Now, heading into the August 15 off-cycle elections in Osun State, the countdown is less than 2 weeks to go. At a peace signing accord ceremony on Thursday, 14 political parties pledged to uphold peace. We'll be reviewing some of the statements made during the peace accord signing, but more so on the number of registered voters, because INEC announced on its official website that the total number of registered voters amounts to 2,339,233 registered voters who will be participating in the elections across the 30 local government areas. The peace accord signing ceremony, which took place in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, had in attendance the INEC chairman alongside members of the National Peace Committee and a representative of the Inspector General of Police. Let's take a listen to the pledges made, starting with that made by Cardinal John Onyeka, member, National Peace Committee. Take a listen.
The National Peace Committee, I am making my special appeal to all the political party members here present to abide by the spirit and the letter of the accord that we will now sign.
Now, in line with the comments of Cardinal John Onyeka, is it just a ceremonial signing, or does the peace accord actually compel political actors to uphold peace?
Yeah.
He used the word appeal because it's as much as an appeal. People always ask, who are those who sponsor thuggery and election violence on election day? I don't know if you care to react to Cardinal John Onyeka's comment there.
Well, certainly when it comes to peace accords of this nature, they are often importantly signed in states that have been perceived over time to have a very volatile electoral circle or a very volatile electoral space. And Osun, for instance, is one hot spot that tends to have seen quite a number of years of election violence, and even going into this off-cycle election on the 15th of August, there's that there have been predictions of possible violence. But I think it's also important that while the peace accord is binding, not necessarily by law, but by means of, elder statesmen, men, very important individuals in the society who have championed the cause for democracy and have championed the cause for peace over time, peace and unity over time in Nigeria, coming together to appeal to candidates contesting in an election to, ensure that they maintain peace and order. Because at the end of the day, political figures have a very large level of influence when it comes to what their supporters will do or usually do on election days. On the day of the elections, if a political party leader or a contestant who has a large following tells his people, you know what, on election day, by hook or by crook, we must ensure that I win the election. That statement alone sends out a very negative message to the candidate's supporters. And by hook or by crook, certainly you would find traits of violence going into the election. So it's quite important that this sort of appeals come at a time like this. Yes, they might be binding, again, I would say not by law, but when an appeal is made by such very revered clerics as highly placed as John Cardinal Onaikan, talk to individuals in politics or who are vying for positions of power, that I believe those appeals can and should be adhered to. And one very important part of this, one very important person is former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who has been championing the cause for this, through the years. I'm not sure if I caught,
he was represented by Cardinal
Exactly,
Onaikan.
he was represented. So this is just one of many peace accords, even though in recent times people have sort of criticized how politicians in different states continue to go to the peace accord, agree on one thing, and then their supporters do an entirely different thing on election day. And some people are also of the opinion that the peace accord is now becoming more ceremonial than, very serious as it used to be. But I think the most important thing is that democracy in itself is supposed to bring about law and order. It's supposed to bring about stability. It's supposed to bring about a more organized form of politicking in Nigeria. And if we continue to go rogue during elections, if we continue to allow vices to infiltrate electioneering periods, then I think what we are practicing might not necessarily be a very pure form of democracy. It might be diluted in some way. So it's good that they're suing for peace, and it's also important that the people that have been there or that were there when the peace accord was signed adhere to it strictly and tell their supporters not to cause violence or mayhem.
Well, still speaking at the event was the INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amupiton, SAN, who prior to the event also commissioned and inaugurated the Osun Decide studio with the deployment of Beaver's machine across the 30 local government areas and the Modakeke area office in Osun State, where elections will be conducted across 3,793 polling units, with a total number of registered voters totaling 2,339,223. Let's take a listen to Professor Joash Amupito there, reminding political actors that there is indeed punishment should they be found guilty of intimidating voters. Take a listen.
These hotspots location will receive specialized, highly visible security deployments. Security forces have been issued strict operational guidelines to neutralize any form of violence and attempt at ballot destructions.
Professor Amupiton there speaking. Let's just quickly get your reaction before we take a listen to the Inspector General of Police and, of course, Governor Adeleke?
Well, I think the most respected Professor Joash Amopiton's statement there is nothing short of what I had expected. Of course, as the chairman of the electoral umpire going into the election, what he should have done is what he did exactly, assuring the electorates that their votes will count, assuring that all necessary electoral materials are put in place and are ready for the elections to go as smoothly as planned. But it's also not just about talking. At the end of the day, we need to see the results happen, and the results should tally with the words that have been said at the signing of the peace accord on the 15th of August. In just a few days' time, we should be able to see that the words of the revered Professor Joash are matching with the actions of the INEC in the Ocean polls.
Well, finally, let's take a listen to the last two speakers at the signing accord ceremony, and we'll take a listen first to the Inspector General of Police, Olatunji Disu, represented by AIG Akinyele Fasuba, who spoke on his behalf, and also Governor Ademola Adeleke, who responded on behalf of the Osun people, restating their commitment to a peaceful conduct of the polls. And then we'll come back to conclude on the program this morning.
All the people that will be involved will be the one recognized by the Constitution. People should not entertain any fear that maybe all these Amotekun, Vigilante, and all others will be used.
Our gathering is to endorse peace, but my government and people are facing police sanction, violence, intimidation. War is being waged actively against my people by Osun APC, openly supported by the Osun State Police Command.
Well, it's also part of the rhetorics by the governor that has received some backlash. People say, as the leader of the state, at a peace accord ceremony, he should be pledging peace and not accusing the All Progressive Congress in Osun State of stoking the violence. As we conclude in a minute or less, Chijoke, before we say our goodbyes, what do you make of opposition voices asking that he should have refrained from accusing the APC and just make a pledge to peace?
Well, I think you wouldn't entirely blame the governor, considering the antecedents of the things that have played out in Osun State in the last couple of months. And mind you, the governor is not entirely at, at a very good place with the federal government, especially the president himself, with local government funds being withheld from Osun State and whatnot, even though it's on a hush-hush level, but the problem is still there. But I also think that, yes, like many people have stated, as the chief security officer of the state, as the #1 man in the state, and also as the ruling party in Osun State, he shouldn't have been pointing fingers at the opposition for stalking, violence. And he made some very weighty allegations on the Nigeria police, which I think is unfounded and not befitting, for a governor of his status. What I was expecting would have been for the governor to, just like every other person there did, to sue for peace, to call, the opposition party members and the opposition parties together and say, you know what, we're going into this election not just for our own pockets, not just for our own parties, but for the people of Osun State. Osun electorates deserve a peaceful, a free, fair, and credible election, and beyond the election comes the governance. So whether it's Accord Party, whether it's All Progressives Party, whether it's People's Democratic Party, what the Osun people want is good governance. And whoever eventually wins the seat, whether Governor Adeleke is returning